It's amazing. Your book was fascinating, and I can't wait for you to share with our community. Our community is women over 40, and they are on a journey of taking back their power with their health and their wellness. And I just know that what you have to share with them is going to help them get over some obstacles and through some hurdles that they're having. So, with that, would you mind sharing the art of fear, the 2 or 3 bullets you think that would be most helpful? And then we are going to give away one of your books.
Yes, I love that. Hi. So my background, I'm a fear and anxiety expert, high performance facilitator. I have a really unique background that brought me to this point. And I didn't learn about fear and anxiety and other emotional issues and what to do about them through studying it in college. I'm not repeating any of the same old stuff you keep hearing from self-help gurus, psychologists, or doctors. Like, this is a really unique approach to fear and other emotions that you've never heard about. So listen up. My background, my education came from having been a professional athlete in a very dangerous sport for a very long time. I was considered the best woman big mountain extreme skier in the world for 15 years, or sorry, for 12 years, but I was a pro for 15. And so being the best in the world at any sport is very difficult to do. Being the best in the world at a sport for 12 years is even harder. And then having the sport actually be super life-threatening, where the consequences of failure are death, that's what extreme means, made it even more difficult. So I definitely had a reign of terror when I was in my 20s and early 30s that I was dealing with a tremendous amount of fear, skiing life or death situations, sometimes on a daily basis. And I learned, not during my ski career, but in kind of studying a Zen approach to fear afterwards, exactly what I did right by fear and what I did wrong by fear that I'm going to share with you all, that I shared in my book. I was also voted the most fearless woman athlete in North America by the outdoor industry, beating women in all sports disciplines, not just skiing. Yes. So I definitely know what to do about fear. We'll just put it that way. And what's captured in my book is I've kind of taken on the entire self-help community and their attempts to help you conquer, overcome fear, rationalize it away. Anxiety, which is fear stuck in your body that's recirculating round and round when there's no more threat, like there's no snakes or there's no speech anymore or whatever, and you just can't sleep and you're just feeling anxious all the time. You know, that trapped fear in your body, all the things that we're taught to do to overcome that too, I'm saying are actually really bad advice. And what we should do is back up and rethink this. I mean, when an industry has failed us for far too long, I mean, right now, anxiety disorders are only on the rise, despite all these methods and modalities that we're taught to overcome our fear, to let it go, to fight it, to rationalize it away, to breathe it away, to replace it with calm and, you know, gratitude practice, all these things that we do, meditation to feel better. They are Band-Aids. They work. They help you feel better, be less anxious, maybe even be less depressed, kind of get through another day if you have PTSD. If you have like irrational fear, just calm it down for a moment. But these methods and modalities are actually not going to take us where we want to go, which is to be free emotionally, in flow with our emotions, all of that, not have any emotional issues. So the reason why is because these Band-Aids are just new, improved ways to help you seemingly deal with fear, but actually they're ways to help you not deal with your fear. So back to my ski career. I was dealing with a tremendous amount of fear, like I mentioned, and I'd be standing at the top of a mountain and about to film, you know, for the cameras, and it's a 55-degree slopes, and they're filming from the helicopter, and it's $50, right? A lot of pressure on. Guy gets on the radio and says, Kristen, it might avalanche. You know, if it avalanches and you get caught in it, you're gonna die. Like, have a plan. Like, so I mean, it's just a very scary situation. So what did I do in that moment? should I pause? Do you have any questions about my background before I kind of dive into the deep end of this?
In your book, I wanted to butt up against it because it's just so different from the other information, but I was just drawn in by each piece of, as you told your story about the skiing. So I don't have any particular questions. It's just, yes, if everyone could have an open mind about your approach, it makes sense after the 10,000, the company version. And so just keep going. It's good. I don't know how much we can get in, but fascinating.
Okay. So when I'm doing something really scary, and let's say you're not obviously going to ski the kinds of things that I do, but you are taking risks in your life. You're getting married, you're having children, you're starting a business, or maybe you're taking on a job for which you're slightly underqualified, or you're riding roller coasters, or what have you. I mean, just life is scary, and we're all dealing with fear at our own levels. And so I was just kind of more drawn to doing scarier things and stepping further out of my comfort zone than most people. But the way I deal with fear and the way that other people deal with fear, it really matters how you deal with it, no matter how much fear you're inviting into your life or not inviting into your life. There are people that are listening that maybe don't do anything scary. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to feel fear. You're just going to feel less fear. And actually, you're not supporting your growth because you're unwilling to feel fear. And actually, if you want to learn and grow as a person, you have to step out of your comfort zone. You have to take risks. So this is for anybody that's ever going to take any risk whatsoever, no matter what it is, small, large, you name it. There are 4 different ways to deal with fear. And the first way to deal with fear, which is taught in our society, which is the worst way to deal with fear, I'm ranking them from worst way to deal with it to best way to deal with it, is we resist it. Now, resistance comes in many forms. You could try to rationalize it away, breathe it away. You could be in your head and think and try to understand it as a way to control it. You could fight that mighty battle, or you could avoid fear. That's a form of resistance. So don't get too caught up on the word resistance. Just like being in denial of it, ignoring fear, all those things that we do regarding fear, this inevitable part of our lives, I do not recommend it. And the treatments for anxiety disorders involve more resistance. And whatever you resist persists. Like, let's say fear is a person in your life. If you're like, I don't want to deal with you, shut up, I'm going to ignore you, I'm going to fight you, I'm going to rationalize you away. Like, you have a compromised relationship with that normal part of life. Like, see it as a roommate in your life. If you resist the roommate and pretend he doesn't exist and all of that, that's going to make for a very difficult life. And eventually that roommate is going to retaliate and scream and yell and show up as an anxiety disorder or depression or PTSD or what have you. What we're taught about what to do about fear is such bad advice, and it's not working. Anxiety disorders are only getting worse. 1 in 3 teenagers in America right now, not just have anxiety, but they have an anxiety disorder. And it's because of what we're taught to do about fear. Whatever you resist persists. So that's the first level. I did not resist fear at the top of that mountain. Mm-hmm. The second level is you learn how to accept fear. Oh, it's normal and natural part of life. I am supposed to be feeling this. It's not a sign of personal weakness. It's not a character flaw. I'm about to give a speech, of course I'm scared. I'm about to go to college. Of course I'm scared. I'm about to give a presentation to my boss or ask for a raise. Of course I'm scared. You don't need to kind of get rid of the fear. Once you start accepting it, you realize that, oh, it's here for a reason. Like, it's part of life. And it's actually here to help me be sharp and focused and on point. That's the second level. The third level, and this is something that I've never seen taught anywhere else except for through my work. I'm just starting to see some peers and colleagues that are starting to broach this, but you learn how to embrace your fear. So it's not resistance anymore, and it's not acceptance. And oftentimes when we're taught acceptance is normal and natural, then there's a comma, and then we're taught like, oh, you need to conquer and overcome it. You need to accept it's normal and natural, but you need to get rid of it and not let it run your life, right? And we're right back to resistance. So that's step 1 and step 2, or level 1, level 2 is what's familiar in our culture. Level 3 is embracing fear. And all of a sudden, like, imagine embracing the roommate. and you're not in your head anymore. You're actually kind of making friends with this roommate. You're starting to appreciate this roommate called fear, and you're starting to have a physical relationship with this roommate instead of just a heady relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, emotional intelligence is seen as in our culture as our ability to understand and control our emotions. So understanding the roommate and controlling them, like, you're never really going to understand the roommate. You're never really going to understand fear. And if you try to control fear, it'll wind up controlling you. Nobody likes to be controlled. Certainly not a roommate, certainly not fear. But when you start embracing your roommate, when you start embracing the fear, then magic starts to happen. And that's what I started doing up in those mountains. I'm trying to get rid of this sunbeam off my cheek.
You look angelic. It's fine.
Okay. Anyway, so embracing your fear. And then the fourth level, which is what I did out there in those mountains that made me a world-class athlete, which is the secret to other world-class athletes. I mean, I've talked to Laird Hamilton, big wave surfer, Alex Honnold, he free soloed El Capitan. Like, what we're doing is we're not fearless. We are embracing, and we are, fourth level, intimate with our fear. And intimacy is like, I can feel it feeling me. It like energizes me. I'm in my body, dealing with the emotion emotionally. For me, emotional intelligence is our ability to feel our emotions in an honest way and have them help us come alive. And so it's the fear that helped me come alive. It's the fear that helps people who give speeches come alive. It's the fear that helps people who take huge risks in their life, in business, not just in sports, but in anything, that the fear actually helps them come alive and bring their A game to everything that matters most. So the fear actually in that mountain is because I was willing to feel it, because I was intimate with it, is the very thing that took me into the zone or the flow state that helped me perform at my most magnificent, that helped me be a world-class athlete, the best in the world for a really long time. It was the intimacy with the fear that took me there. And you can learn how to do this as well, but you have to stop first resisting it and then move to the levels.
Right. Fascinating. I think a lot of our audience, our community, they would resonate with that level of anxiety that you're talking about that is actually fear driven, and maybe just taking the next step to change. They've been in, a rut, or they don't see the hope in becoming fit or improving their health. And so just capturing what you said, that anxiety is just a version of fear, and that acceptance or that embracing would be a positive move for all of us.
If you struggle with anxiety, if you struggle with fear that seems to be there for no reason whatsoever, that is because you've been resisting it.
Yeah.
And like, look at fear like water through a hose. Like, it's supposed to flow through your body like water through a hose. And if you resist it, you kink the hose, it gets stuck in your body and then just recirculates round and round in the form of anxiety. And so long as you keep trying to breathe it away, so long as you like go for a walk whenever it shows up, which you feel like it's a way to deal with it, but it's a way to just get away from it. And it's going to be waiting for you when you come home. It's just, you've got to learn how to unkink that hose and get fear into more of a flow state in your body, the way nature intended. So here's kind of the gem that I really want people to get. And if you only get one thing from this talk, here's what I want you to get. Fear is never a problem in anyone's life for any reason whatsoever. Fear is not a bad thing. It's always a good thing. It's only a good thing. There is no good or bad fear. There's only fear. It's very simple. It's an emotion, and it flows through our body like water through a hose, providing for us on point physical reaction, presence, all of that, focus. If you have a problem with it, fear is not the problem. Fear does not hold anybody back from doing anything. Really let that sink in. What holds people back is their unwillingness to feel it. It's their, I don't want this. And the second you have the thought that I don't want this, I don't want to feel this, you kink the hose, you get in a fight with it, you try to conquer it, overcome it, you pick a fight with that roommate, which leaves the roommate no choice but to retaliate. Like we're kind of mixing analogies here, but in summary, fear is not a problem for people. If it seems like it's a problem in your life, I want you to look at your own reaction to it. And that is actually the real problem. And in fact, to the point where that awful feeling that we associate with fear, it's actually not fear. What that awful feeling is the feeling of, I don't want to feel this, or there's something wrong with me that I feel this. That's the awful feeling, not the fear itself. Because when you have an intimate relationship with fear, it doesn't feel bad. It feels like energy. It feels like presence and excitement.
Mm-hmm. I do have one question just for my own. Was there ever a time where you were standing on the top of a mountain where you did not have that fear present, or was it something always there with you as you began to take your slope or whatever? Was it always with you?
Absolutely. And
Okay.
anyone that tells you that they've ever been in a state of fearlessness is either in denial or ignorant or lying, or maybe they just don't really understand what's going on. I mean, I've worked with 10,000 clients now. I've studied this. I don't think there's anyone on the planet that has studied fear more than I have. And so what can be said about people that are fearless is one of two things. Either they are in denial of it or blocking it out, or really, really good at ignoring it. But so it doesn't show up as fear, but it shows up in some other way in their life, maybe as an anger issue. They have road rage, or maybe that undealt with fear during the day will wake them up in the middle of the night and show up as insomnia, or maybe they have depression, and they don't know where it's coming from. It's like that fear is showing up redirected in another way that doesn't feel like fear, like it's sadness or something. Like you can pretend that you don't have fear, but there are consequences for that, and they are pretty dire. Nobody is without fear. It's such a normal, natural part of life. It's like denying the sun or your arms and legs, or it's just, nobody's without fear. Not only is it impossible, but it's undesirable. The other way that people can feel fearless is if they are in that intimate state with the fear. And then it doesn't feel like fear at all. It just feels, like I said, like aliveness, presence, and focus. And there's no consequences to that. And just a quick example, I had given a lot of speeches, and it's kind of funny giving speeches about fear, because of course I'm scared before I go on stage every time. It's scary to give speeches.
Mm-hmm.
Even more so scary to give speeches than to ski, you fall, you die slopes, right? Because I don't have as much experience in it. And certainly not in the beginning. And so there's two things that I can do in that moment. I can either breathe in calm and breathe out fear and rationalize, I've got this, I've been practicing, they're going to love me, right? Yes, that works. It's been proven by science that it calms you down in 4 minutes. But there are long-term consequences of that. I may be fearless as I get on stage by doing those efforts to resist fear. But next thing you know, it takes me 4.5 minutes, the next speech I give, and then 5 minutes. And next thing you know, I'm having a panic attack while driving down a country road, and I have no idea where it came from. And I don't realize that it came from me trying to rationalize away fear before giving speeches, right? Like there are consequences for not dealing with your fear in an honest way. And the consequences, I mean, there's 8 billion people on the planet. It could show up in 8 billion different ways. So that has been proven to calm you down in the moment, but not without long-term consequences.
Yeah.
So it also has been proven by science that what I teach works in 4 seconds, and there's not long-term consequences, which is where you just kind of find the fear in your body and you give it a hug and you say it's normal and natural to feel it, and you become intimate with it, and it calms right down in 4 seconds. And there's no long-term consequences.
Yeah. Well, Kristen, thank you so much. We are streaming this into our community. We've got 1,000 women in that community. And then tomorrow and over the next 7 days, we're going to be emailing people. So that if they couldn't be here tonight, they can hear you. And at the end of the summit, we're going to be giving away one of your books that you've graciously agreed to autograph for us. And I highly recommend to everyone, this may seem odd because it is, you've not heard this, go get the book. Get the book, read. I've got it on Audible, and it will begin to make sense. how you can embrace the fear, change your thought pattern on fear, and really move forward. I love it. So thank you so much.
And last thing, this book isn't for people that want to ski and take risks skiing. This book is for people who want to go to the next level of their development, or it's for people who are struggling with anxiety disorders, depression, PTSD, insomnia, and the like. You know, it gives you a crystal clear explanation of why you have these emotional issues and what to do about it that you've never considered before. It's a heck of a book. I hope
Chiquita was a great throughout the book. Chiquita, your client, was Chiquita?
Jaquetta.
Jaquetta, thank you, Jaquetta. Yeah, what an amazing story. So, yeah, get the book. It's not, we can live through you on the skiing experiences, but it was all of the fear, the way that you described it, and in our body and becoming familiar. It was great. So, yes, they ought to get the book. If they're dealing
what you're
with
doing
fear.
Working, try this instead.
Yes, that's right.
It's amazing.
That's right. Yeah, great book. So thank you very much. And thank you for sharing with the world. And thank you for sharing with our community. We are so grateful and appreciative. This has been great.